The finance minister is now facing fraud charges. Let's get the background from our senior reporter, Karyn Maughan, who's been following the story very closely for us. I want to start from the beginning, Karyn, and very bizarrely, this media briefing Shaun Abrahams had began with reference to the alleged SARS rogue unit, but that turned out to be completely irrelevant to what was actually being announced.
I think it was very obvious that it was a mechanism to create a bit of atmosphere around that, because if he'd gone off straight off the bat and said, by the way, we're charging the finance minister, we can expect to see 50 billion rand go off the JSE in the next few hours. But by the way, it's about early retirement for a SARS official that cost, on our version, 1.1 million rand. I don't know that it would have been as effective in the eyes of the NPA as if they surrounded with this kind of speculation about the SARS rogue unit, which we know the Sunday Times had to apologize for all its coverage of, and its claims that Gordhan was going to be arrested in connection with that. But, you know, ultimately a move been made around this alleged PFMA, Public Finance Management Act violation that occurred in 2010, 6 years ago.
So I mean, does it appear to you on the face of it that the NPA has a case that can be fought and won in court?
I don't think so. And I actually said to Shaun Abrahams, I said, if you are prepared to do this, you made a decision, and, you know, obviously I said, given that the rand has just tanked, you know, in the last few minutes, and if this case does not result in a conviction, will you resign? And of course, we know he said that he would never resign. He wasn't going anywhere. But you know what the sadness for me is that, you know, maybe the NPA does have a case. I don't think, based on everything that we know, that you can ever say that the finance minister intentionally and criminally violated or committed fraud, as the NPA is alleging he did, in terms of this, you know, what they said was lying to SARS officials about Ivan Pillai's early retirement and certain benefits certain liabilities that he should have paid and SARS ended up paying in some kind of BEE machination. I don't think you could, I mean, I'm going to be fascinated to see, but to show that Pravin Gordhan was criminally liable in that circumstance, I mean, I've never seen anything like it in my life. And also, have we seen, I asked Shaun Abrahams, have we seen any cases like this prosecuted before? And he said, off the cuff, I don't know. You know, the terrible tragedy is we have manifest illustrations of Public Finance Management Act violations all the time. You just need to page through the Public Protector's Nkandla report, and you will find many, many of those. And none of those are prosecuted. We're talking about a sum of 1.1 million rand in 2010. And I really think that there are, you know, as I've said to you many times before, I would hope that there's massive smoking gun evidence showing that the finance minister deliberately acted in a fraudulent manner in this particular situation. Because if it turns out, as I suspect it will, that the minister will be discharged of this charge with a Section 174 without ever even having to defend himself, then the NPA's credibility will never recover. I mean, it'll be in tatters.
Well, you spoke about the issue of political interference. You asked quite a pointed question about their previous litigious sort of action in courts, specifically referring to the recent corruption charge case. Just talk us through what Shaun Abrahams' response to that was.
Well, his response is essentially that they're consulting on the issue, but you know, it's going to be a very hard pull for the South African public or anyone to swallow when you have a case where you have 783 charges. You've got a very detailed KPMG forensic report showing about 5.3 million rand in so-called corrupt payments to President Jacob Zuma. You have his co-conspirator in that corrupt relationship convicted, unable to appeal in any courts, which showed, and the SCA particularly, reinforcing that the president was in a manifestly corrupt relationship with Shabir Sheikh. You know, in the instance where Sheikh was convicted, they showed 5 incidents in which President Zuma had intervened as then MEC for tourism on Sheikh's behalf. At the time that he was going to go on trial, it had multiplied to 28 instances. Now, in those circumstances, the fact that the NPA is dithering in a situation where a high court has said to them in no uncertain terms, your decision not to prosecute the president on the basis of the so-called spy tapes and political interference, which, by the way, had no role to play in the evidence against the president, that decision seems to be causing so much turmoil and trouble for the NPA, but they seem so willing to prosecute the finance minister, who has been very much, rightly or wrongly, set up as the kind of watchman for public finances in the context of South Africa right now. I mean, it's self-evident that is a problem.
Karyn Maughan, thanks so much for filling us in. Karyn Maughan is our senior reporter with the latest on the Pravin Gordhan charges. Now, when Afternoon News continues, we stay on this topic and we speak to an economist about the consequences of the latest NPA move on the finance minister. Don't miss that, still to come.